We know why they not coming out here though. I mean, it's obvious, you know. It's obvious. Gary is full of, you know, us.
In the early 1900s, steel was the backbone of the United States economy. It's how you got skyscrapers, how you got bridges and road. It was all thanks to steel. And there were two guys that were behind the greatest steel company ever made in America, U.S. Steel. It was J.P. Morgan and another guy by the name of Elbert H. Gary. Elbert H. Gary was such a fascinating man that U.S. Steel, the company he co-founded, bought all of this land and named a town after him, Gary, Indiana. And the plant that created the steel.
You know we in some different times when you can't do shit like that no more. You can't just go buy land and build and name the town after yourself no more, nigga. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could have lived back then, but ain't no telling what it would have been like for me though.
For U.S. Steel was actually called Gary Works. Now, this was in 1906. And in 1906, Gary, Indiana looked completely different than it does today. It was a lot of white people and a lot of European migrants. But the issue came in with World War I. We were at war with the entire world, and in many cases, beefing with Europeans. In World War I, the United States was also involved in that war, which cut off the supply of European migrants coming to Gary. But not to fear, there was another talented group of people who could come and work at U.S. Steel in Gary, Indiana. And those were black people, black Americans. And the Chicago Defender was posting about all of these lucrative opportunities in nearby Gary, Indiana. And of course, as you know, many blacks in the South illegally got access to the Chicago Defender. So they started to move and moved in, replacing some of these European migrants that would be flooding into the city. However, Gary, Indiana was still largely white. And as you see here, the population would become more black over time. In 1910, the population was just 15,000. The black population was only 383. But then by the time of 1950, the population of Gary was 133,000 and the black population was 39,326, making it 29.4% of the population. Now in the 1960s, Gary would have the highest population, or one of the highest populations, of 178,000, making it almost 40%. And in 1970, we would see that Gary was over 50% black, which brings in my next point. In 1967, Gary, Indiana would see its first black mayor, a brother by the name of Richard Hatcher. But guess what? U.S. Steel was still making a lot of money and families kept coming. There was one famous family from Gary, Indiana. You might have heard of this guy, right? That's correct. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, the Jackson 5, started right there in Gary, Indiana, because right? I believe Joe Jackson himself worked for U.S. Steel.
Is that right?
Between 1950 and 1970, Gary, Indiana was actually starting to become its own black economic mecca. U.S. Steel had unionized jobs, which meant high salaries. They had a high rate of black home ownership, and the money was coming in to fund the tax basis. But in the 1970s, things would start to fall apart. U.S. Steel would no longer have a monopoly on the steel business across the world. You had other countries selling high quality steel at a lower rate than what U.S. Steel could produce. Then you had a new phenomenon called mini mills, smaller factories producing high quality steel at a lower rate. And then you had other high quality alloy metals replacing steel that didn't cost as much. One of them could be aluminum, and in certain cases, plastics. And what happened was U.S. Steel started to lose market share. They didn't lose everything, but they lost enough. So what happened to the city of Gary is that they started to deindustrialize. So people started to get laid off. And now that Gary
that happens to a lot of places, bro, for
real. Is a black city, it affects black people a lot. Now, the remaining white people, as the blacks were coming in, were also
look
leaving
at what happened
Gary.
To Detroit, you know what I'm saying? That same shit happened to Detroit for real.
Now, the remaining white people, as the blacks were coming in, were also leaving Gary, Indiana, and so we were experiencing white flight. They were taking their skills and businesses to other parts of northern Indiana. And then we all know what happens with the heroin epidemic and the crack epidemic of the 1980s, and you get yourself in a pretty shitty situation. But let's talk about the real problems of deindustrialization in black cities. When you have a population of 170, 180,000 people, you have what is called a tax base. And cities need this tax base to fund a lot of stuff. You need to fund police, you need to fund roads, you need to fund water, you need to fund the fire department, street lights, all of that stuff, public works must come from taxpayers. And so what happens is,
Ain't that every city though? Or what, small towns, they gotta go with the county or some shit?
is when your tax base leaves, then you don't have the money to do it. And when your tax base leaves, then you don't have the money to reinvest to keep the city up. And that brings me back to what has recently happened in Gary, Indiana.
Well, it ain't really even the city, it's the companies. If the company leave, then, you know, the jobs leave.
And when your tax base leaves, then you don't have the money to reinvest to keep the city up. And that brings me back to what has recently happened in Gary, Indiana. Northern Indiana Public Service Company, also known as NIPSCO, they provide all of the electricity grids and repairments around 32 counties around Northern Indiana, Gary, Indiana being one of them. However, not everybody has the same electrical grid. East Chicago has a different electrical grid maybe than Gary, Indiana, because Gary, Indiana was set up at the time that U.S. Steel was. When Northern Indiana started getting these 99 per hour wind gusts, almost equal to a level 2 hurricane, it took out a lot of the electrical grid stuff around Northern Indiana.
My nigga, why didn't you just say what level tornado that was, nigga? What the fuck level is 100 mile? You know what I'm saying? What tornado? Cause that's what it was.
A lot of the electrical grid stuff around Northern Indiana, but it really affected Gary because Gary, Indiana was dealing with old infrastructure. And that's important because if your infrastructure is not updated because of your tax base, then guess what? You're gonna be without power for a long time. And the big issue is this.
We don't pay, we get cut off. But when disaster happens, they want to charge us X amount of dollars, but we already paying into this.
Now, this lady in Gary, Indiana.
Nah, I ain't gonna lie, the electric company gotta be one of the biggest scams though, bro. It gotta be a scam, man.
Has been without power for a long time. This happened on August 11th. And imagine, you can't eat your food because your food is spoiled. Right. You don't have AC. You don't have anything. When she's saying is, when you don't pay the bill, you cut it off, but now we're paying the bill and you won't help us. And that's largely true. When that population left Gary, Indiana, well, guess what? The taxes to run the electricity became higher. A lot of
you gotta think, Gary, Indiana is probably situated off in its own little place. You know what I'm saying? I think I don't know where it's at on the map. But when you have a small town, bro, that's built off of jobs, and the only reason people are there is because of the jobs, and then the jobs leave, you know what I'm saying? Then the city's gonna start to decline, right? But he keeps saying that it's the city's fault because the city declined and now they ain't got power. Nigga, this is no excuse. There's no excuse. The city declined, so what? You know what I'm saying? That electric company is still profitable. They still making money. You know what I'm saying? They yeah. Well, maybe they don't have the funds. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the city's in debt. It ain't just the electric company, cause you know, but I don't know.
Residents in Gary, Indiana were spending most of their money not just on rent, but on electricity. And that's the issue because they're spending their money as clients and as citizens on electricity, but their electrical grid is not being updated. And you also know what happens when you get these wires going out and it's bad. You get these big winds that are destroying electrical infrastructure. People start coming, stealing wire, they sell it on the black market. But at the same time, some of these newer communities close to Gary, their infrastructure is built more underground. This includes counties like Southern Lake County and Peter County and St. John, these
What do you mean their infrastructure is built underground? Because you're showing here, right, some power lines being on the ground. You can't run power lines underground. You know what I'm saying? I doubt that that's what's going on in their infrastructure. Is power lines are being ran underground. You know what I'm saying?
counties were built with modern underground lines.
Is that right? Modern underground lines, huh?
Substations and automated grid switching tech. In comparisons to Gary, Indiana's aging grid in the core. When you also use your tax base, you also get aging buildings that become decayed. And the term for that is called blight. If you ever look at certain old black communities like Detroit, places that people have left, certain parts of Gary, Indiana, you will see these older buildings that are just boarded up and the infrastructure is just.
This is what this picture right here that he showed. This is what half if it's not a subdivision, this is what Oklahoma look like. Arkansas. It's what all this shit look like. It's all old as fuck.
Decaying. If the electrical systems are somehow connected to some of these homes that are in decay, it's actually a longer time for somebody to come in and fix this in comparisons to newer communities. And there's,
I think, well, so where am I going with this? I don't think the power lines being above the ground is the problem here. The problem probably is that they can't get to it fast enough to fix it or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They don't have the resources, enough workforce. Trust me, the government, the city, they got the money to do it. They can create a bond. They can do whatever they need to do. They can get a loan from somewhere to make the shit happen. Best believe that. You know what I'm saying?
Also this racial component that Gary, Indiana is not getting the help because a lot of the people in Gary, Indiana are black.
And people are tired and angry and bitter.
Here we see people in the city of Gary, they're tired, they're frustrated, they're out waiting for food. People are trying to help them, but people are making this a black thing, a prejudicial thing, and you can look at it like that. But let's talk about the city of Atlanta. This could never happen because you have a lot of people that earn a lot in the city of Atlanta.
It can never happen because Atlanta is filled of millions of people. Gary, Indiana is a small town situated off somewhere by itself that was built off of jobs. And the only reason why people are there is because of the jobs and it's cheap. It's just that simple. So when the city declines, like Muskogee was declining for so long, imagine something just came through there and wiped everything out. I couldn't imagine, but they say Gary's like 100,000 people, more than 100,000. That can't beat the whole city. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know.
Or in the metro suburbs that are black, and the tax base will keep up the funding for these things. But you do see this same thing happening in other parts of deindustrialized black populations. What about Benton Harbor, Michigan? What about Flint, Michigan in the water crisis? What about Jackson, Mississippi in the water crisis? We see similar things happening in East St. Louis, Illinois. And these communities represent something that is happening in a lot of parts of the Midwest of Black America, in cities that did very well. People leave, people never come back, and then the people that are stuck there suffer a lot. In every situation that we see here, we notice a trend.
I mean, that's just what's gonna happen, bro. You know what I'm saying? It's unfortunate, but you gotta think about it. If something like that happened, and you've been in a decline in population for the last 30 years, or however the fuck long, you know what I'm saying? Like, if something happens, you gotta know Yeah, that's why you gotta be in tune with the city and what's going on, like what they doing, what they finances is looking like, they debts and bonds and what all that shit looking like. You gotta be in tune with that if you really care. If you really want to stay there for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying?
Successful people leave the city.
Yeah, they're small towns, bro. And then when everybody leaves, it's hard. And there's nothing else around. It can't grow. Because people don't want to live there. Everybody want to live in LA where it costs of living high, New York and Florida and Texas. And, you know what I'm saying? I want to live out in Jackson, Mississippi, Gary, Indiana. I want to live out there.
Move for better
You
opportunity.
only live out there because it's cheap. You know what I'm saying? That's the only reason. The only reason why you move to Muskogee is because it's cheap. You know what I'm saying? You don't just move to Muskogee because you want to live there. The fuck? Nah. Yeah, I want to live in Muskogee unless you got family there. You one of them type of people. You know what I'm saying? You got it. I could never. I'm out of there. You know what I'm saying?
Don't reinvest into the city goes away. Now, other areas are getting help quicker, and some of these places have been restored, the more non-white places. But I'm gonna tell you what I believe that it largely comes down to. What it comes down to is the lack of evaluation of black talent in these places. What we're gonna have to be honest about is when you have these depopulation black bases that we're seeing in parts of Illinois, parts of Ohio, parts of Indiana, it becomes very difficult to fix a depopulated base. And the only real solution is identifying black talent early and on to reinvest into the city, to bring things to those communities so that the communities can become.
Yeah, that could be true. Hey, Swarthy, KC, appreciate the sub. That could be true because, if it's a predominantly black city, then, majority of people doing the work around there is going to be black folks. But then again, it comes down to the city's finances, the county's finances, and what they can actually do and what they're willing to do, And that's nothing you got to think. Just because it's black people in office, not all skin folk is kinfolk. You know what I'm saying? They could be selfish and greedy and abusing their power for their own good. They don't want everybody. They can set the bond up to get the power back on within a month or however long, however fast they can do it, but they don't want to do that. They want to keep, giving themselves a pay raise, keep scamming. You know what I'm saying? How many people we keep hearing about scamming the government, bro? I just seen another case. I think it was a man or something. He was scamming. He got millions of dollars, bro. He created fake companies in the system and then sent money to those accounts and to those businesses and then transferred it to his account. You know what I'm saying? Like a dumbass.
Become profitable in the information and digital ages. That's the ages that we live in. And unfortunately, this sort of phenomenon is happening all over the world, but it's been really happening in the cities where you had a white base, they leave, or you had a talented black base, they leave, they never come back, and things are messed up.
That's what happens when the white folk left, bruh. They that's what they do. They run it for its resources and then they leave. You gotta peep game, bro. You gotta peep game. If those opportunities now came for black people, you gotta put 2 and 2 together. How long is it really gonna be there? Because if they don't want it, it's something going on that you need to be aware of. You feel me?
This is the same thing you see in towns like Pine Bluff, Arkansas. It's the same concept. But guys, what do you think? Do you think that the Gary, Indiana residents are being...
I think the whole Midwest, I think if it's not a subdivision, it's the trenches. I think if you don't live in a new a new home built from 2005, 2000 plus, you live in the fucking trenches, bro. It's just that simple. Even if the neighborhood's cool, it's all just old people, bro. You're in the trenches still, nigga. It's poverty. That house old and raggedy, nigga. That's just what it is. You know what I'm saying? I think all this shit, it's just old, bro. And so if a storm comes in, right, it could be over with for that town, bro. I mean, shit, we done seen towns in Oklahoma that ain't been the same after getting hit by a tornado. You know what I'm saying? Like, we done seen that. You feel me? But hey, hopes and prayers to them folks in Indiana though. Hopes and prayers to them, man. They gonna get through it. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we on the road to 1 million. If you ain't hit that like button, subscribe button, and turned on all notifications, slap the dog shit about yourself, cause that's the first thing you should have did when you clicked on this video. I'll get at you on the next one, and I'm gone. T.Y. Peter 9.